There are mountain roads in the U.S. that climb past 10,000 feet, where you can leave the city under bright sunshine and after just a short climb, step into cool sky air and watch an entire mountain range unfold like a postcard. But here's the thing. Many of those passes don't require high speed to make your hands tighten on the steering wheel. A lane that's just a little narrower than usual, a blind bend, a perfectly timed crosswind, or a damp patch from fallen leaves can turn a beautiful drive into an all-out nerve test. Today we're counting down the top 10 most dangerous mountain passes in America, from places that feel like a car festival like Tail of the Dragon with 318 turns in 11 miles to roads where the name alone makes people hesitate. Every road on this list has its own unique trap. Some hit you with a turn rhythm that never lets you breathe. Some punish you with long grades that demand real brake discipline, and some flip the weather on you in minutes. So here's the question: are you more afraid of the road itself or what you can't see, waiting just beyond the next curve? Number 10, Tail of the Dragon. Tail of the Dragon on US 129 sits right on the Tennessee-North Carolina line, a short stretch of road that's famous as a nerve test for anyone behind the wheel. You drive about 11 miles and yet the road packs in 318 turns stacked back to back along the mountainside. The danger here isn't about raw speed, it's about a driving rhythm that never lets you relax. The moment you clear a left-hand bend, you're already setting up for a right, while the forest and rock walls block your sightlines. A lot of people get careless because they assume, if it's famous, it must be easy. In reality, famous means crowded and crowded means variables. On some days, you'll run into motorcycles riding in packs, a sports car glued to your rear bumper, and then a slow vehicle hunting for a pull-off to take in the view. One sudden break in a spot you thought was empty, and the curve you were flowing through turns into a split-second reflex problem. The speed limit is often around 30 mph, which sounds gentle, but with that density of bends, 30 is enough to make your hands clamp down on the steering wheel. Down at Deals Gap, the vibe feels like a festival for driving fans, but there's one detail that makes everyone go quiet: the tree of shame, where people hang broken parts like a warning that the dragon doesn't care how confident you feel. Along the route, photographers wait to catch the moment you carve through a corner. That can tempt people to perform a little extra, even though this is the kind of road where being off by a few inches in the wrong place can make your heart jump. Another pressure point is the nonstop continuity. There are hardly any major intersections where you can grant yourself a perfectly timed break. The area also restricts overly long vehicles, and that alone says a lot about how sharp the turns really are. And then weather becomes the third player in the game. A light rain is enough to leave the surface. Damp fallen leaves can sit exactly where you need grip most, and the shade under the trees sometimes holds slick patches that catch you off guard. If you want to understand Tail of the Dragon, think of it as a rhythm exam. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stay alert. Hold your lane, pick your sight lines, and respect your following distance. And when you feel like you've finally gotten used to turn after turn, the real question becomes, will the next danger come from the curve itself or from what you didn't see waiting beyond it? Number 9, Going to the Sun Road. Going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park, Montana, is the kind of drive that makes you want to stare but also forces you to remind yourself not to stare for too long. The route runs about 50 miles, yet even if you try to drive it straight through without stopping, it can still take nearly 2 hours because everything here pushes you to slow down. The road climbs into the Rockies and carries you up to Logan Pass at 6,646 feet, crossing the Continental Divide as if you're driving along the spine of an entire continent. The tension here isn't because it's a dirt road. It's because the road is carved directly into the mountainside. In some sections, the cliff face sits right beside your door, while the other side drops into a deep valley. The kind of view that makes your stomach tighten, even though you're just sitting still. The higher you go, the narrower it gets. The tighter the turns become, and the easier it is for your sightlines to get tricked by rock walls, tree lines, and blind corners right in front of your hood. Every so often you pass under places where the rock juts out overhead like a low ceiling, especially near the famous hairpin called the Loop, where taller vehicles can feel the clearance above them shrinking. And this is the detail that makes people realize the road isn't playing around. The park enforces vehicle size limits. If your vehicle is longer than 21 feet, wider than 8 feet, or roughly 10 feet tall, you should think twice. because the space and overhead clearance in some stretches stop being generous. Another layer of risk is the opening schedule. A long portion of Going to the Sun Road stays closed all winter because of heavy snow and avalanche danger. So every spring, the snow removal feels like peeling frozen layers off the mountain just to reopen the route. Even on a perfect day, what keeps drivers tense is the constant uncertainty. Logan Pass gets crowded early and people pull into turnouts for photos, so the cars behind can get hit with sudden slowdowns. Sometimes you're rounding a curve and a group of cyclists appears or wildlife crosses in a spot you assumed was clear. The rapid switching between sunlight and shade can also leave patches of road dry in one moment and damp in the next, changing the grip without warning. You think you came here to relax, but in reality you're driving inside a painting that's hanging on the side of a cliff. Number 8. Donner Pass. Donner Pass on I-80 in the Sierra Nevada sounds like a normal stretch of interstate until you realize this place can change its personality in a single hour. You can leave the valley under clear sunshine, climb to nearly 7,000 feet, and suddenly everything turns into a whiteout. It's the kind of road people drive on autopilot right up until the weather forces them to drive with discipline. Once the climb starts, you feel the long uphill rhythm. In a car, you have to hold steady throttle. In a heavy truck, it feels like dragging an entire room up the mountain. When traffic gets thick, one vehicle slowing down in the wrong spot can instantly stack everyone up behind it. And at Donner, a stopped line of cars is not just annoying. It's a reminder that you're in real mountain country where temperatures drop fast and visibility can disappear. Then the real escalation hits snow and wind. This is where Californians learn a phrase the way they remember an ex's name: chain control. When the signs say chains are required, you're no longer driving on confidence, you're driving by the mountain's rules. One driver trying to squeeze through unprepared sliding even a little can spin sideways, block a lane, and freeze the whole pass into a standstill. At that point, nobody gets to go fast, even the people who want to. Sometimes a Caltrans snowplow appears with flashing amber lights. CHP sets up a checkpoint, and you realize that even the professionals are basically asking the mountain for permission. Donner's twist is its history. The name isn't famous because of the scenery. It pulls up the memory of a 19th century winter tragedy when people were trapped by blizzards near Donner Lake. Just hearing that a lot of Americans can instantly picture the cold and the isolation, and they understand why this place is always mentioned with a certain caution. So if you have to cross Donner, the smartest thing isn't bravery. It's checking the forecast, carrying the right chains, filling up before the climb, and accepting that sometimes the safest choice is turning back. And if an interstate can make you this tense, then the next road on this list will show you what it feels like to be pushed right up against the edge of space, in a way that's even more terrifying. Number 7. $1 Million Highway. The $1 Million Highway on US 550 in southwest Colorado sounds like a rich man's joyride until you realize the payment it demands is your attention. This is the stretch between Ouray and Silverton, about 25 miles of mountain road that clings to the San Juan Mountains like it is trying not to slip off the map. People call it scenic, and it is, but it is the kind of beauty that can trick your eyes into forgetting what your hands are doing. As you climb away from Ouray, the road starts tightening its grip. The turns come fast, some of them sharp enough to feel like the mountain is folding the pavement back on itself. In places, the shoulder all but disappears, and the drop beside you becomes a wide-open reminder that there is not much room for mistakes. You do not need to speed here to feel your pulse rise. And yes, many first-timers underestimate it badly. Even at a cautious pace, the combination of steep grades, narrow lanes, and blind corners forces you to drive like you are reading a sentence, one word at a time. Then comes the altitude. US 550 crests Red Mountain Pass at roughly 18 feet, and the air up there feels thin in a way that makes the whole scene sharper. The weather can flip quickly too. A calm blue morning can turn into wind mist or sudden snow. And when winter takes over, this road stops being a postcard and starts acting like a test. Ice can hide in shaded curves, snow can reduce your sightline and avalanche control, and temporary closures are not just rumors. They are part of mountain life in this corridor. Here is the twist, and it is why people remember this highway long after the drive. No one agrees on where the name really came from. Some say it cost $1 million per mile to build. Others claim the gravel and fill were laced with gold ore from the mining days. And plenty of locals just smile and tell you the views are worth $1 million right up until you look down and remember the price of distraction. That little mystery makes the road feel like legend, not just infrastructure. If you ever drive it, the smartest move is simple. Keep your lane, give yourself space, and let faster drivers pass when you can. Treat the scenery like a reward you earn at pull-offs, not a show you watch while moving. Because if this is only number 7, the next road will raise the stakes in a different way, with danger that is not just beside you, but all around you. Number 6, the Grapevine. The Grapevine on I-5, also known as Cajon Pass, is a stretch of road Californians both know by heart and quietly respect. It is not a scenic one-lane cliffside pass, but it is the choke point that connects Los Angeles to the Central Valley. One small incident is enough to slow the entire north-south corridor as if someone slammed on the brakes. You can leave the flatlands under bright sun climb, gradually into the mountains, feel the air turn colder, and notice the whole flow of traffic start to shift its rhythm. The real stress comes from the long grades and the army of trucks. There are extended climbs where cars can hold steady throttle while heavy rigs crawl upward, creating a clear speed gap between lanes. Drivers in smaller vehicles often want to pass quickly just to escape the feeling of being boxed in, but every lane change on an uphill slope is a gamble with safe spacing. When a truck moves over to climb the traffic behind it, can fall into a rubber band pattern brake and release until one slow reaction turns the rhythm into chaos. The downhill side is a different test: overheated brakes, uneven speeds, and runaway truck ramps sitting there like a warning sign made of pavement. The twist with the Grapevine is how fast it can shift from merely irritating to genuinely concerning because of weather. There have been times when I-5 was closed for hours due to snow and ice as part of a lockdown effort to prevent chain reaction crashes. For a major interstate, a closure sounds almost unbelievable, but Cajon Pass is still mountain terrain, and mountains get the final vote. Even without, snow-strong winds can tighten a driver's shoulders. Crosswinds through the I-5 corridor can slam into a vehicle's side, especially a trailer box truck or RV, and you can feel the steering wheel get heavier just from one well-timed gust. That is why the Grapevine feels scary, not because of one dramatic corner, but because it is a discipline test on a road everyone thinks they have mastered. A smart driver lowers their speed expectations, leaves a longer following distance, and checks road conditions before the climb, especially if they are towing something heavy. And if a multi-lane pass can still make an entire system wobble, then the next road on this list will test you in a more direct way, where one missed beat makes that trapped feeling snap on immediately. Number 5, Cajon Pass. Cajon Pass on I-15 is the kind of mountain gateway people assume will be easy because it is a wide, multi-lane interstate that looks calm on the surface. But Cajon's trap is that it does not need sheer cliff walls to feel scary. It is scary because it is a traffic choke point between the Inland Empire and the Victor Valley, the familiar up and down route for waves of vehicles heading toward the desert. And when a familiar artery gets pushed past capacity, every small mistake can get amplified into a big problem. As the climb begins, you feel the truck convoy appear like a background rhythm you cannot avoid. Heavy rigs crawl uphill, smaller cars try to pass quickly, and suddenly the whole pass turns into a speed gap game between lanes. If one truck changes lanes at the wrong moment, the traffic behind it can instantly snap into a rubber band effect brake, and release like an endless metal snake. The descent has a different kind of tension. One vehicle coming down too fast can heat the entire stretch in an instant, and the fact that this area has runaway truck ramps is a message in itself that this is not a pass to treat casually. Then comes the character that makes Cajon feel different: wind. The wind at Cajon is not the kind that cools you off. It is crosswind, strong enough to shove tall vehicles like box trucks, trailers, and RVs sideways. You can be holding your lane just fine, and then a gust hits at the exact moment you change lanes or pull past a truck, and the steering wheel demands constant correction. When the wind gets severe, authorities may restrict high-profile vehicles because of rollover and stability risk. And that is when drivers understand that in Cajon, you are not just controlling the vehicle, you are negotiating with the air, This corridor has seen wildfires burning close to the freeway, where smoke flames and gridlocked traffic turn a routine drive into the feeling of being trapped between mountains. And when heavy rain hits, Cajon can shift into a mud and rock story with slides and debris flows that force closures or break traffic apart without warning. You think you are simply crossing a transportation pass, but in reality, you are moving through a zone where wind, fire, and mud can all step onto the stage within the same year. And if Cajon has already proven that an interstate can still become a nerve test, then the next road on this list will push that no margin for error feeling up another level. Number 4. Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak Highway in Colorado is the kind of road you assume is just a scenic drive until you realize you are literally driving straight up a mountain that rises above 14,000 feet. The road is about 19 miles long, but it pulls you from normal air into a layer of sky where your body starts to feel different. Your heart beats faster and even the vehicle responds in a new way. It is beautiful, but it is the kind of beauty that forces you to remind yourself not to get careless. The first escalation is the altitude. The higher you go, the thinner the air becomes, the faster the weather can flip, and one cloud drifting across can change visibility instantly. Some people reach a certain point and start getting headaches or feeling short of breath, and you understand this is not just a roadway, it is a mild physiology test. But if your body is problem 1, the vehicle becomes problem 2. Long, sustained grades make the engine work non-stop, and if you run the air conditioning on the climb or hold the wrong gear, the car can heat up faster than you expect. Then comes the part many people are not mentally prepared for: the descent. On Pikes Peak, going down is where mistakes show themselves. If you ride the brakes to control your speed, heat builds up. Braking power can fade, and that "I'm pressing, but it isn't grabbing" feeling is something nobody wants to experience. That is why this road is known for one discipline rule: use a lower gear, slow down firmly, then release, instead of turning your brake pedal into a constant holding switch. At peak hours, rangers have even checked brake temperatures at Glen Cove, and that detail alone tells you this road is not joking. It is also a speed legend. The Pikes Peak International Hill Climb turned this route into a world-famous proving ground where drivers and machines battle 156 turns and an elevation gain that climbs like an elevator. Once you know that, you look at the curves on Pikes Peak Highway differently. It stops being a road to go see the view and becomes a road you have to respect. And after you have felt that mix of beauty and tension on Pikes Peak, the question that remains is this: will the next road test you with altitude again, or with something even harder to control waiting right at the edge? Number 3. Beartooth Highway. Beartooth Highway on US 212 is the kind of road that shows you why some highways can only stay open a few months each year. It links Red Lodge in Montana to the northeast entrance of Yellowstone, but the real feeling is not going from point A to point B. The feeling is that you are climbing into a different layer of sky where the more intense the beauty becomes, the easier it is to forget how quickly risk can sneak in. The first escalation is altitude. Beartooth Pass reaches nearly 10,947 feet high, enough for the weather to change faces as fast as a curtain drop. The air gets thinner, the wind turns colder, and one heavy bank of clouds can roll in and make the temperature plunge hard enough to surprise you. People often call this one of the highest paved roads in the northern Rockies, and up there you understand why. The trees thin out rock and sky, take over the entire frame, and your car feels like it is moving along the edge of a vast wilderness with no bottom. Then comes escalation. Number 2. The geometry of the road. Beartooth is famous for its switchback zigzags curves that force you to turn the wheel while holding your lane with precision, because the moment you take a corner just a little too wide, that my tires are closer to the edge than I thought, feeling appears instantly. This is not a road that needs long, straight sections to wear you down. It is the nonstop rhythm of turns that slowly drains your focus. And the biggest trap is the scenery itself. You glance at an alpine lake, you look down into a valley, you track the ridgeline stretching forever, and you forget that you are driving on a route that does not forgive even a few seconds of distraction. That summer can still smell like winter. In some years, snow can linger into early or even mid-July at the higher points, and just the thought of a summer road trip with snow is enough to send a chill down your spine. Add another layer wind. Up at that elevation, wind is not just background noise. It can cut visibility, make the vehicle feel lighter, and force constant steering corrections, especially in exposed sections with no forest cover. You can be driving in bright sun, and then minutes later you are swallowed by fog and gusts that feel like a season change. And that is why Beartooth Highway deserves a top 3 spot. It is beautiful like an invitation, but dangerous like an exam. If you think altitude and switchbacks are already peak tension, then the road at top 2 will test you differently, where the risk does not come only from nature, but from the way the road forces you into split-second decisions. Number 2. Wolf Creek Pass. Wolf Creek Pass on US 160 is the kind of pass where the scariest part is not the climb, but the drop on the other side. You top out around 857 feet, with thin, air-cold wind and San Juan mountain scenery. So stunning it can make you forget you are crossing the Continental Divide. But the moment you crest the summit, you understand why it earns a top 2 spot. The escalation begins on the west side. From near the summit down toward the Treasure Falls area is a little over 8 miles, but it runs at roughly a 7% downhill grade, steep enough that your vehicle will start building speed the second you get careless. And for about the first 6.5 miles of that westbound descent, the dangerous curves come one after another, forcing repeated slowdowns. This is where many drivers make the classic mistake riding the brakes for too long. CDOT has a warning that sounds like an ultimatum. You overbrake it, you won't make it. In other words, brake the wrong way and you create your own dead end. Then you reach the detail that changes your heartbeat. 2 runaway truck ramps. One sits near mile marker 162.5, another near 161, and the second one is even known as the last chance. When a pass has to build escape routes for vehicles that lose their brakes, it is telling you plainly that gravity here does not negotiate. Just seeing those ramps makes the message clear. Going downhill on Wolf Creek is a test of low gears and patience, not confidence. This area is known for heavy snow and strong winds, and the pass is home to Wolf Creek Ski Area, which is famous for its snowfall. That is great for skiers, but for drivers it means road conditions can flip fast, visibility can drop, and avalanche risk is always part of the backdrop. CDOT sometimes has to control avalanches and clear snow slides to keep US 160 safe. But in storm season, one system can suddenly turn the pass into an unpredictable challenge. So Wolf Creek is not frightening because of one single shock. It is frightening because it demands discipline for mile after mile, downshift early brake, firmly then release, keep your distance, and do not let the scenery pull your eyes away from the lane. And if one pass can be this high, this steep, and still need brake failure escape ramps, then the road at top 1 will push the pressure to an even higher level. Number 1. Black Bear Pass. Black Bear Pass in Colorado's San Juan Mountains is not the kind of pass you accidentally stumble onto during a road trip. It is a road you choose on purpose with the right vehicle, real preparation, and one blunt question in your head: do I actually want to keep going? The summit reaches about 12,840 feet high enough that the air feels different, and from the very start, there is a sense this place does not tolerate carelessness. The escalation begins with the geometry of the road itself. This is a narrow dirt route carved into the mountainside, with rock on one side and open space on the other, the kind of drop that pulls your eyes downward, even when you do not want to look. And then you reach what makes Black Bear atop 1 the point of no return. Around mile marker 5.6, the route enters a section called the Steps, where the surface turns into a steep, technical series of rock ledges. From there, roughly a mile of the road becomes one-way downhill only. That feeling is completely different from every other pass on this list. It is not just difficult, it is telling you that once you cross that line, you have to finish. No turning around. No polite change of mind. The steps are not simply steep. They force you to drive by the inch. You cannot let the rhythm loosen because loosening means sliding, and sliding here is not a joke. After the steps, the road keeps raising the pressure with brutally tight switchbacks, corners that feel like someone is twisting the road down the mountain by hand. You pass Ingram Falls and continue descending toward Telluride, where the iconic postcard view appears like a reward, but also a warning. Bridal Veil Falls and the power plant perched above it. The beauty does not relax you, it tightens you up because you know that if you look at the wrong thing for even a second, consequences arrive before you finish thinking. Black Bear's twist is that it is not only dangerous because it is technical. It is also dangerous because it can become unpredictable. Rockfall and debris can appear after bad weather and the route can close seasonally or based on real-world conditions. This is the kind of place where a closure sign is not advice. It is the safety line. And that is why Black Bear Pass takes the #1 spot. It is a test of disciplined decision-making and knowing when to stop. If you made it this far, the final question is simple: which road on this list gives you the strongest chill? And would you actually dare to put your wheels on it? And that's our top 10 most dangerous mountain roads in the United States. If there's one takeaway, it's this: these roads aren't scary because they're evil. They're scary because they punish small mistakes. Altitude weather flips, long grades, blind curves, heavy trucks. And that one moment of distraction can turn a beautiful drive into a stressful lesson. If you've driven any of these, tell us which one felt the most intense and why. If you haven't, which road would you never attempt, even with perfect weather? Drop your story in the comments because your experience might save someone else's trip. If you enjoyed this countdown, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next list. And if you want a part 2 with more roads, vote it in the comments and include your state.